I could have bought cheaper combat gear, but there was a certain piece of gear that you might know better as what Tom Hardy wears as Mad Max in Mad Max Fury Road. And I had to have it, so I did spend $150 on a piece of little, basically movie memorabilia, which
was 60% of the movie's budget.
60% of the movie's budget, yes. How much were the lenses, roughly?
They were a few $100s a piece.
Okay.
Some are cheaper, some are more.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a lot of those, like, you know, we could have made the film without them.
Yeah, we could have made the film with an iPhone.
Doesn't everyone have a cinema camera? Oh, wait, they kind of do.
Sort of, kind of. It records in 4K.
Welcome back to Your Next Film, a podcast by creatives for creatives, where we discuss indie filmmaking and help you grow both creatively and professionally. I'm your host, Zack, and in today's episode, we're tackling a question that every aspiring filmmaker eventually asks. How much does it actually cost to make a feature film? We'll be breaking down the 3 key phases of movie making: production, pre-production, and post-production, and how much each of these phases cost us. We're getting into the real numbers and sharing with you a comprehensive budget breakdown of our first indie feature. Later, in this week's Zack's Gear Corner, I'll be standing in the snow trying to convince you why your wireless mic is the ultimate filmmaking upgrade, and why you should finally ditch your cumbersome audio setup.
You ever try running a slate when your fingers are freezing?
Also, if you're a filmmaker with a short film, we want to feature it on the show. Click the link in the description to submit your movie, and we just might review it in a future episode. We can't wait to check it out.
Welcome, listeners, to
the Your Next Film podcast. Hey!
It's a podcast by creatives for creatives, and right now we're talking about making movies on a budget, which we always talk about, but specifically how you can make a feature film for not that much money.
Like close to $0.
Yeah, as close to $0 as you can get. So I'm your host, Matteo Guthrie.
And I'm your host, Zachary Koch.
We just made a feature. Got to toot our own horn on that again, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but we just made an indie feature film called Hypnagogia.
If you're a first-time listener, we're going to talk about this forever. But while making a feature, we've been talking about this forever, but in actually doing it, honestly, the budget wasn't that bad. Which, you know, you hear about a lot of your favorite directors' first films, and sometimes they cost tens of thousands of dollars that the film isn't even good enough for. So it's a big hurdle to get over. So here's a bit of a guide, I guess, on how we were able to do that.
Right, and we'll be getting into the gear,
yeah,
some like processes that can help you streamline things and make them more efficient. But I guess before we get into all that, how was your week, Matteo? Did you do anything particularly exciting?
Honestly, the biggest thing I've been doing is I've been cataloging my record collection.
Okay. Does that mean you're like ripping them?
No, I'm I've got a big Excel sheet open, and I'm like line by line, just like artist, album, genre, location in my house. And I'm just going over it, and I'm like organizing them by where I have them stored.
You should have a section for the quality, because I have some records that are like middle quality, and then some that are like really good, and then some that are like, don't play this.
That's going to be tough. Like, I have a lot of records. I've got something like 200 something.
Damn, dude. Mine are just what you can see there.
Having just gotten married, it's now my wife's record collection and my record collection together, and we're having to like figure out spots to put them. So eventually we'll go over and I suppose just listen to each. Does it skip? You know, give it a grade.
Honestly, that sounds kind of fun. That sounds like something I would enjoy doing.
I've been enjoying just, you know, throwing them on the turntable while I do this and listening through everything.
Yeah, I need to plug mine back in, because since I moved in, just haven't.
Gotta get on that. Gotta get that vinyl spinning. Well, here's our intro question. What is the best war movie you've seen?
The best war movie I've seen is also the best war movie, period, objectively, end of story. It's Full Metal Jacket, which is a surprise to no one who knows me.
No, not at all.
I honestly think it's a beautiful movie. It's got some like little bit of dark humor, light humor elements, especially at the front of the film. And that kind of disarms you for the horrors of war. It's obviously an anti-war film that you see later on in the film, like the second half. And I feel like that's a really effective way to do it. instead of it just being all tragedy and then you're like kind of numb to it. It really sets you up to be emotionally affected.
You know, Mulan does that too.
Does it?
Yeah, it's like all singing until they get to like the end of A Girl Worth Fighting For, where there's like just a completely destroyed village. It's like, it's very jarring if you like watch it.
Dang, dude.
Stanley Kubrick taking notes from Mulan.
He might have actually.
Timeline's all wrong for that one.
So what is your favorite war movie?
I really like Full Metal Jacket. I thought about putting it on there, and I was like, surely Zach will do this. So I didn't. And then you did, and I was like, aha, here we go. But it's kind of it's a toss-up for me. I think, and I've seen a decent amount of war movies. For some reason, as a child, I was a very warlike child, despite growing up to be a writer. But as a child, I watched a lot of war movies, and I think through my entire life of war cinema, Apocalypse Now would have to be my favorite.
I still need to watch that. When I do, I could see that being one of my favorites, if not my favorite.
I'm a shill for Francis Ford Coppola. I'm a shill for any Coppola, basically. You know, Nick Cage and onward. It's such a beautiful film, and it's such a triumph of cinema, and it's frankly a miracle it ever got made. I've talked about this on the podcast before. But that's like my favorite. I think honestly the best war movie I've seen is Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line. So it's World War II Pacific Theater, which is kind of a cut and dry conflict, right? Like, you know who the good guys are, the ones who didn't do Pearl Harbor. You know who the bad guys are, the ones who did Pearl Harbor and, you know, allied with the Nazis. And then you can kind of draw a line through the conflict there and understand it. But he still manages to really tackle the brutality and how much you don't want to be in a war, and also just like the sacrifice and every part of Guadalcanal, which was like a really rough conflict. And he manages to just package it up in a very long movie that has you really like contemplating war in ways that you didn't before for that specific part of the conflict. In some of the shots, the camera crew just shows up.
Were they like breaking the fourth wall, or was it just an accident?
No, complete accident, but he just keeps it in because that's the best edit. It's really, really good. Highly suggest it.
I need that kind of confidence as a filmmaker to just like leave things like that in.
I mean, like Scorsese with his continuity editing, you'll see somebody like close the door 3 times in a scene, but like it doesn't register in your brain because you're focused on a good scene, not focused on how many times they close the door.
It's nice to do that as like you get to do that because it's fun and artsy. But sometimes when you're on a budget,
do what you can.
Yeah, you gotta just take what you can.
Speaking of a budget, we've like our frickin' the end of the show. At the end of every show, we say go make a movie, and you know we point at the camera, and I say something funny, and that's like our outro is go make a movie. So like we talk about go make a movie, but how much does one really cost, right? And I think that's really the point of the show is like we say this, here's how we did it, extrapolate from there. But before we like get into that, I do want to kind of talk about like the 3 phases of a film, which everybody knows: pre-production, production, and post-production.
Right.
And so like all these phases of a film have drastically different costs and just commitments in general. And so like when we break them down, it'll seem a little uneven, but each one I feel is important. For example, like post-production or pre-production is like you're spending almost no money, but like the money you spend in pre-production really sets up the entirety of the rest of your film.
Right.
Because like you're setting yourself up for success there. You're, for example, sourcing props, though I did a lot of that during production as we had an odd filming schedule, but that's an exception to the rule. So, for pre-production, it'll really be mostly equipment and prep. And then production obviously has like props, crafty, special effects, Hershey syrup for us, which is both technically crafty and special effects.
I did see you behind the couch, like having a little snack mid-shoot.
I had to taste my hard work.
Right.
But post-production, like I've spent basically nothing on post-production for now. We'll get into that. But Zach, you've probably spent more in post-production than I have so far.
And production, actually.
Yeah, and
well, I guess if you're factoring in like gear, I'm thinking
Yeah.
more of like gear stuff.
well, we'll get into that the time being. But this is a kind of a sidebar here is like we're talking about how we made a movie on. It's like my budget was basically $300-$400, which is nothing, right?
Yeah, especially for a feature.
Yeah, especially for a feature, and a lot of that is people working for free. I'm doing, I'm funding the film on just sort of whatever I have in my my spending money for the month, but a lot of this is also a bunch of pre-prep with equipment we already had. It's like, for example, one of the main props of the film is this TV back here. You can actually kind of see it right there.
Mm-hmm.
It has not moved since we filmed, and that TV is it's something I got for free from a friend who was clearing out a storage unit, and he's like, my wife told me to get rid of this. And I'm like, I'll take it from you. I'll take it off your hands gladly. And then here we are.
You're like an animal shelter for CRT TVs.
There's one off camera there. There's two right there. And I'm sure there's more coming at some point.
Yeah, one of them has been mine multiple times. And then I get sick of it, give it to you, and then ask for it back. It might happen again. Who knows?
Who knows? But regardless, I do want to note that there are some things that are free that we just spent money on a long time ago. There's a lot of equipment. But if you watch many of our episodes, we'll talk about how you can literally make these films with an iPod, an iPhone, an iPod if you're really ambitious, a high 8 camera. You can do a lot. So this isn't simply like, oh, well, we just happen to already have a cinema camera going, and we're not factoring that into our film cost. Because it, again, like a lot of this gear you can just either find much cheaper or, borrow or make do. But here's the budget as we have it.
Yeah.
This is kind of what we're going to talk about. So
yeah, for sure. So yeah, we'll definitely be getting into like ways to minimize costs in pre-production, in production, and in post-production, talking about the gear, maybe some like methodologies, like I said, like ways to write around the things you have, like your CRT, for example. But before we get into any of that fun stuff, what inspired you this week, Mateo?
All right, so I've been talking. I'm in the output, but one of my my input phase has really been. I watched a movie last week called The Girl with the Needle, and it is perhaps the bleakest film of 2024.
Wow.
Just insane. And I was like the soundtrack was amazing. It was this industrial ambient soundtrack for a post World War I drama that happened mostly in Denmark. And the film is just so beautifully depressing. Every time you think it can't get worse, something bad happens again. And you just see like mistakes cascading into more tragedies. Extremely depressing film, but also one, I think it deserves its nomination for Best Foreign Film at the Oscars. And I hope it wins because it's really good.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say. There's nothing more inspiring than depression and tragedy.
Well, this has plenty of it. So if you need inspiration, there you go.
Well, I've got enough of it on that front because I just watched The Notebook for the first time.
What did you think? I'm curious.
I liked it overall. Okay, without giving my entire analysis of it, there were things about it that I didn't prefer. I wouldn't go as far as to say like, oh, it was a bad film because it did this and that and I didn't like it. I see what the movie was trying to do with like some of the symbolism of like the house and stuff and some of the time jumps and gaps. But I personally felt like there was a lot of loose ends that I wanted tied up. I don't know. Like I almost would have liked the movie to be 3.5 hours.
You want The Notebook to be longer.
Kind of. A little bit. But without getting into my analysis, which is pretty worthless, all things considered.
What did you think of it in general as a film?
It was a beautiful film. The scene where they're like in the boat and they're like, there's all the
with
ducks.
all the swans.
Yeah, or the swans or whatever they were. I was like, damn, someone really did put all of those swans there. Like, that's insane. There's like thousands of these guys.
It's a Cassavetes film, I believe. That's a high standard of quality.
Yeah. Anyways, it was a beautiful film. Really depressing. I personally find like existentialism, even though it's kind of a bygone philosophy, I find that it influences a lot of the work that I make. But yeah, watching The Notebook and then like, without giving anything away, it's like, yeah, it really makes you think about life. Like,
sent you into an existential crisis.
More or less, yeah.
Incredible.
Especially watching it with your wife,
Would you say you had a spiritual experience watching The Notebook?
Here's the clip. Watching The Notebook was a spiritual experience.
There we go. Well, shall we get into pre-production?
I would love to. I'm going to let you kind of take the lead on this one. Because as the writer, you tend to spend more time in pre-production than I do.
I spent a lot, like, if we're talking, like, time cost, I spent so much time in pre-production, and I didn't have a lot of time for pre-production.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the script fundamentally in 1 month, maybe 2.
Our feature film, at least, yeah.
Yeah, for a feature film, that's not much time.
A
honestly.
minuscule amount of time.
Yeah. So, but I did spend a lot of time in it. I would say my biggest expenditure there, and this was bought for me a few years ago. My mom bought me Final Draft as a script writing program. Honestly, when people are like will buy whatever is the sort of top of the line, kind of expensive, almost a luxury script writing program or editing program, I often am like, is this really like worth the hype?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, Final Draft is legitimately worth it.
Do you feel like you use all the features?
I use as many features as I can, and there's a lot of extra features that I just don't use because I've never needed it for whatever specific pre-production portion this is. But I mean, you and I went back and forth. I sent you the script, like the raw file, and you were able to break it down for because you also have Final Draft. Yeah, you're able to break things down in it. It has all these really, really helpful tools, and I'm like, yeah, this is like a professional grade script writing program.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Celtex exists for free. There's
I forgot about Celtex.
There are several. I think Scrivener was one that my friends use, and that's free. I've had decent experiences with basically every script writing program out there. Celtex can be pretty buggy and also very annoying, so do keep that in mind. But it's free. You can write as much as you want on there. So like you don't need Final Draft, but it was, I believe I got it on sale. I mean, I got it for free, but my mom got it on sale, so it was only like $150 for me. They run sales all the times.
I really liked one called Fade In.
Oh,
Fade In
yeah,
was good.
I've used Fade In.
In some ways, I prefer it over Final Draft because
Really?
they have, I use Final Draft, but like whenever I do write scripts, which isn't too often, they have a really great 2-column AV script.
Oh, yeah.
And Final Draft just doesn't do that anymore.
I think I haven't tried to write a 2-column in a long time. That wasn't just.
I kind of love 2-column.
I
don't know why it's been phased out.
Word for my professionally, I have to do a lot of 2-column AV. So I was doing it all the time, but I used our like company template in Word, so I didn't have to use.
Can you
Final
send me that
Draft
template because I miss doing 2-column?
That is
It's proprietary.
it's legitimately
No
a proprietary.
shot.
It
No
is marked
shot, dude.
confidential.
That's hilarious.
It's just a table basically in Word.
Right. But all that to say, there's lots of free solutions out there. Also,
again, literally Microsoft Word or Google Docs if you want to use Google Docs instead.
or just
had
like a pad of paper,
Yeah. I mean, I had a friend that was like there are templates in Docs, I believe, for single column at least. Again, it's not hard to make yourself a 2-column template. But for single column, there is like a preset that you can just go in at least Word and I believe Docs as well. Not hard. Anyway, which is to say, I didn't spend any money on Final Draft, but had I, it wouldn't have been much. You can get, especially if you're a student, tons of student discounts. If you're not a student, hang on to that ID, I guess. That's my takeaway. Zach, what did you spend? What did you get? What did you use for pre-production?
I don't think I spent money on much.
Did
I
you
had some gear purchases, a
did
couple
you buy
small
Final
ones.
Draft again?
No, I still have my license.
No. Okay, you still had your license.
I've had it for a while. It's not the recent version, but it's fine.
Did you buy any gear during the pre-production stage? How about that?
I did. I bought my, funny enough, Rode Wireless Pros, which we're going to get into in Zack's Gear Corner today, which will be fun. But the Rode Wireless Pros, their set of wireless mics, I knew that, we're on a budget. We can't hire a sound guy. We gotta be scrappy, gotta wear a lot of hats, right? And so one way that I streamlined my audio setup was to use wireless mics that were just synced and jacked directly into my camera. And so, yeah, I bought them specifically for this project. Obviously, I use them all the time. We used them when we started the podcast as our main mics. They sound great. 32-bit float audio. You don't have to set your levels. They just always sound great. And they're totally wireless. You can hide them anywhere. We hid one in Connie's handbag for one scene.
Yeah, that's right.
And it picked up like her voice fine.
Honestly, I was impressed by those mics, and
They
we'll
were
talk
great.
about them more in Zack's Gear Corner. Until then,
I think that was it. I think that
is
was
that really
basically
it?
it.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I bought my optical snoot,
Yeah. Okay.
but that wasn't strictly for the film. But I'll throw it in there.
if we'll count it, how much did that run you about?
It's like 150,
Okay. It's
so
bad.
not cheap.
Yeah.
It's cheaply made.
Yeah. Well, that's how everything is nowadays.
Yeah.
So moving from pre-production to production now, Zack, as far as like gear, again, we're getting into gear. What did you buy for during the production stage?
The main thing I bought was a few more vintage lenses to round out my set. I think I started the production with the Nikon 50mm and the Nikon 20 to 35mm. And I actually made a YouTube video about like how these are the only two lenses that you need for filmmaking because they covered the uses that I needed them for pretty well. Having like a wide to medium focal length range and then having like a medium, like solid prime lens with the 50. And I don't find myself going much further than that usually. But for the film, I wanted the vintage cine lens set. You know what I mean? So I got some like gears for them. I got like matching outer rings for them. Most of the film shot on like 20 and 50mm focal lengths, which is crazy because 20 is pretty wide.
Yeah. I mean, it works, especially for what we're trying to evoke with the film. How much were the lenses roughly?
They were a few $100s a piece.
Okay.
Some are cheaper, some are more.
Yeah.
But on average, like $250. But I mean, a lot of those, like, we could have made the film without them.
Yeah, we could have made the film with an iPhone. So again, we're just talking about what gear we used, but also the fact is you can make something that looks really good with just an iPhone 16.
Yeah, really good.
Zack's
Really
doing that
good.
currently on his YouTube channel.
Guys, doesn't everyone have a cinema camera? Oh wait, they kind of
Yeah, you
do.
sort of, kind of. It records in
Nah,
4K.
You just do.
Yeah.
If it shoots ProRes and it shoots in log.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that just to like, we're gonna be talking about a lot of the gear that we purchased and things that we bought for the project, but didn't need them.
Yeah.
Didn't need them.
Yeah, I mean, again, like these lenses we didn't really need. And a lot of these things are sort of, for example, with the optical snoot, like used for a bunch of other projects.
Mm-hmm.
But you already had most of the camera. But also, your average person already has most of the camera in their pocket.
Yeah,
be it
they
an
do.
iPhone or even not an iPhone. There's plenty of Android phones that have competent cameras.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know you're an iPhone
Biased.
supremacist. So you're a supremacist for the ProRes, etc.
For Apple. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Apple
Tim Cook.
fanboy is the proper term.
Yeah, I did turn into one, didn't I?
Yeah. I mean, you're recording this on an Apple computer. You've got your
I
Apple
do have
phone.
2 PCs in the house.
For how long?
Well, one's my work computer.
Yeah, well,
The other one is a handheld gaming console.
that doesn't count.
Yes, it does. It
you
runs
know
Windows.
it doesn't
it runs
count.
Windows. It's a PC.
A Steam Deck runs. Well, actually, the Steam Deck runs like Linux now, right?
Yeah, but
Steam OS or whatever.
I would still call that a PC. on
Okay,
some-
whatever. Anyway, so
Mhm.
that was most of what Zack bought, with the exceptions of maybe the snoot and the mics. We don't need. We could have done the film without them.
Yeah.
Now it was our first feature. We're going to splurge a little bit on it.
Of course.
But as the main financier of the film, I was the one really footing, like, here is things we actually need, or else the movie is not going to follow the script. I'm going to talk about props right now. So props are extremely important. And one of these props was the main webbing gear you see on the, well, I shan't give it away, but on a major character wears kind of combat gear.
Yeah.
And I could have had other combat gear. I could have bought cheaper combat gear, but there was a certain piece of gear that you might know better as what Tom Hardy wears as Mad Max in Mad Max Fury Road. And I had to have it, so I did spend $150 on a piece of little, basically movie memorabilia, which was
60% of the movie's budget.
60% of the movie's budget, yes. Was this little $150 piece of webbing gear, but it's worth it because it looked great in the film, and I loved it. So
yeah,
that was more of a personal purchase that just also happened to go into the movie. But there's a lot of that in Hollywood, so my own corruption I just fit in. But
yeah, and luckily, like a lot of the costuming our actors already had.
Yeah,
We had other operators in the woods and other people that had like operator equipment, like, you know, tactical vests and boots and things like that. People either already had them, or I think Colton had like multiple pairs.
Yeah, Colton had multiple
and you
pairs
as well.
because he was ex-military. I had multiple pairs of camo shirts because I think they looked snazzy.
Right. But one thing I want to point out is that the reason why there are operators in the film is not because there had to be operators in the film. We wrote the film to have them because we knew we had access to some of this equipment. And so that's something I want you guys to keep in mind. I'm going to really like push this.
For example, Julia, yeah, the CRT already had it. There's a lot of the props. Actually, the guns we converted to be safe for movie firing.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to explain that? How much did you spend on the ammunition for the blanks?
Actually, I did grab my email invoice for this one. I spent $80 on blank ammunition. And the fun thing is that you can just order bullets to your front door. They'll just ship them to you. Like, it's like shipping batteries. It's more expensive.
Our European viewers are going to be like, what?
You can just mail order bullets. But more expensive than buying actual bullets is buying blank bullets for some reason. I assume there's some sort of market economy thing going on there.
Yeah.
But I ordered blanks to my front door. So like $80 later, they just dropped in my lap, and I didn't even use all of them. Mainly because we did have a bit of a curfew thing going on where the neighbors don't want to hear gunfire past a certain time.
Which is frustrating because like they weren't close by. We were pretty far out.
We were
in the
like
wilderness.
a good half mile from anybody. But
yeah,
it's gunfire. The sound does carry.
Mm-hmm.
But we also needed that flash, and so we used guns that had been converted for that fire. And that was very fun. Those guns were some of the prop guns were personal, like the training, like sort of rifle that one of the actresses brought. Some of the guns were personal collection, etc., etc. And obviously, a gun that fires and has been converted is more expensive than just an airsoft gun. But you can also put digital flash on an airsoft gun.
Sure.
But we wrote around having access to these things, and that's what let us have some really, really fantastic shots out in the woods.
Mm-hmm. I see what you did there.
Yeah, shots, right? So, I'm really not counting, again, these props that we already had access to, but again, you can you can go down to your local Goodwill and buy an airsoft gun that, some kid has abandoned, and then you can hit it with a can of Rust-Oleum and you have a prop gun.
Sure, yeah.
So that's much less expensive than what we went with, but we also wanted it to go boom.
Mm-hmm. And it did, and it looked
cool. It did. I also spent about $50 on plastic sheeting. there's a set that we basically dressed up Zack's apartment in big. It's called. Whenever I was working blue collar, we called it Visqueen. I don't know why. I believe that maybe is the brand or perhaps an old timey term for it. But it's basically sheets you put down just for painting. So I went down to my local hardware store, nabbed a couple of those. We had gaff tape already, which isn't expensive at all. Honestly, the most gaff tape we used was when my character in the film, he plugs into the back of his neck a little plug, and obviously I wasn't going to undergo an experimental surgery so that we could make that look real.
We considered it.
We did consider it. We ruled it out of budget because we were spending $80 on prop ammo. But we just taped the plug to the back of my neck, and that's probably the most gaff tape, was just taping and untaping it, because as you sweat and as it just kind of absorbs your skin and hair, and you keep ripping it off, you have to get new tape.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, I spent about, I think, maybe $5 at most on a little tub of Hershey's chocolate, because we were shooting in black and white, and Hershey's chocolate in black and white looks like blood.
We put some into a spray bottle and diluted it with
gosh.
some water so we could like get some wispy, splatters.
The smell was the most, like, it was like, ooh, it smells like brownies in here. And then you get about 15 minutes in and you're like, oh, I cannot take this anymore.
Yeah, that was actually miserable.
Yeah, it was kind of miserable, but it worked really well. There's a lot of stuff that we could have just written out of the script or just filmed around, but we already had access to it, so we used it. Including, we didn't pay any actors.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge thing. If you want to pay your actors and you can afford that, highly suggest it. You can get a lot of actors. We just simply were not in the position to do that, and we had all volunteer actors who were fantastic, and I'm truly grateful we were able to collaborate with them, and I'm really glad that they were able to come on board and give some really memorable performances.
Yeah, they really did. And we also worked with a lot of just friends and stuff too.
Yeah, friends are there. Friends are free.
One of your brothers was one of the operators in the woods.
One of my brothers, the
threw him in there.
15-year-old brother, is one of the operators in the woods. We just put him in a gas mask and a bulky vest, and he looks normal.
And it works.
And really, the only thing you really have to do is feed them. That's the caveat there. This is where my second point comes in. And I spent just I think maybe $40-ish on bottled water. This is all estimates, of course, but I spent no more than $400 in total on everything for this movie.
Not bad.
And that includes the maybe a bit indulgent Mad Max vest for that,
right.
main character.
Yeah, you definitely do not need that.
Yeah, you don't need the Mad Max vest unless you that's your hero prop for whatever reason. It was not the hero prop. I just really wanted it. It's sitting in my closet right now. Sometimes I take it out and look at it.
Did we mention the creature cloth?
Oh, yeah. I paid Roz, who also handled the creature.
Mm-hmm.
And funnily enough, appeared in last week's episode as the person that takes the cat away on the tray in my short film. But I paid her to design and create out of cardboard and paper mache the creature form. And we borrowed the pole that this creature actually rode on. That was, I believe, her dad's boom pole.
Mm-hmm.
Just an expandable boom pole so we could get the creature taller and shorter. And then I believe $80, including what I just paid her to make the actual creature with, materials and all out the door, I was $80 for the entire creature. Considering what puppets and SFX and all of that cost, real Hollywood productions, I'm not too mad about it.
Right, yeah, me either.
Well, I do believe now it's time for Zack's Gear Corner.
All right, guys. I'm going to have to do some preparation because today we're going outside. It's snowing. Definitely didn't pre-record this.
Hit the music. Hit the theme song.
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. Zack's Gear Corner!
Indie filmmaking is all about efficiency. You gotta wear a whole bunch of hats, like the director's hat, the producer's hat, the cinematographer's hat, the editor's hat. You get the idea. But the one thing you don't want to be is the boom guy standing out in a blizzard trying to capture good audio for your indie film. You ever try running a slate when your fingers are freezing? It's not that fun. So what we need is something a little different. First of all, we're gonna get rid of this thing, and gonna get rid of this thing too. And what we need is something wireless maybe, something that can automatically sync our audio so we don't have to use a slate. Man, what could that thing be? Well, maybe we could use something like what you've been listening to this entire video on, the Rode Wireless Pro. You can clip them anywhere. It's one transmitter, it's two transmitters, one receiver. So give it a try. It's a lot cheaper than the sound guy that you're paying, a lot more than the 3 cups of coffee I pay myself. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna find a way to defrost. At least my audio sounds good.
Woo, man. It's chilly out there, man.
Yeah, I do not envy you. I couldn't even go out to my garage to get receipts out of the attic. I can't imagine what that was like.
That wasn't the only thing I was out for today.
No.
Yeah. Had to get my car from the shop.
Ah.
It was really icy. It's really bad.
Speaking of cars, how's the car hunt going?
I was hoping you were going to ask. This weekend, I did some car shopping, went to a few lots, got to test drive some very fun cars. So the first one I test drove was a GTI.
Okay.
I've never test driven a GTI. I've never driven one before at all. It was a lot more fun than I thought it would be, like way more fun. Because I'm coming from a little stock Honda Civic, a manual one.
Yeah.
But just like not an SI.
It's not.
No VTEC.
Nothing especially special.
Test drove a Porsche Boxster. Really fun.
They handle so beautifully.
Okay, 2 things. I know a lot of sports cars have like stiffer handling. You know, they're not like, doesn't have like power steering or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was really stiff. Like especially so. So I think it needed some like
Power steering fluid?
Yeah, I don't know if the Boxster has power steering.
Should, to
It
my
might.
knowledge.
Either way, but it was very fun.
It does have power steering, by the way.
Okay, cool. So my wife and I both test drove a BMW. I've kind of slept on BMWs, but now I'm kind of like
you should continue sleeping on BMWs. That is not an economical option.
We drove a 428i.
Okay.
Which
What
is
year?
2015. So it had the DCT paddle shifters. We could both drive it, so I could put it in sport mode, have the paddle shifter. She could put it in automatic. We were about to pull the trigger on it.
How much?
17. It's not that bad. That's not that bad.
Remember, it also comes with BMW repair costs.
Sure, yeah. So definitely, we did not buy that.
Okay,
but,
good.
So yeah, the car shopping continues, but it was fun.
Have you thought at all about a Miata?
Yes, I sat in one and hated the visibility.
Really?
It was bad. I don't think they're all like that, but the one I sat in, I was like, oh,
Have you thought about putting
like
the top down?
Yeah, of course.
Well, this has been Car Talk. Completely not trademarked. Nobody's ever had an audio based broadcast that talks about cars and called Car Talk. Regardless,
As far as I know, that's true.
let's get to. I've been saying regardless a lot. Let's get to the post-production stage.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'll get into my post-production in a second. Because all my post-production purchases and some of yours, Zach, as well, are down the line in the festivals. And we'll talk about that in a second. But Zach, what have you bought after the fact to really help you complete the film?
Yeah, so a lot of stuff I already had. To go over some of that stuff briefly, my M1 Pro 16-inch MacBook Pro, that thing's been killer. I've had it for 2 years and we'll probably have it for a while longer. I know me and you have fantasized about getting new computers, but honestly, I probably won't be upgrading anytime soon. Probably
I have
not
a
for
Mac Mini
couple more
and
years.
it does everything I need right now.
Yeah, it rips, doesn't it?
Yeah. I really have no complaints about it.
Yeah. The slightly more, I'd say, luxurious thing I have is a studio display.
Yes, I do envy the studio display.
It looks great. It looks great. I mean, it's not worth the money at all, but there's not a lot of options for 5K.
It's a splurge. I buy a $150 piece of Mad Max memorabilia.
I
You
buy a $1,500 monitor.
Potato. Just add a zero at the end and we're there.
But yeah, between the computer and the studio display, I won't bore you on like my interface and my monitors, but audio monitors. Final Cut Pro, $300.
You said you use Soundly?
Yes. So there's an app called Soundly, which I was going to get to. It is the best sound design platform. It's just the best. There's not a better one. So stop looking.
So is it the Final Cut Pro of
Ooh, that's
sound
one way to
design?
put it. No, it's better than that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So all right, let me just sell you on it really quick. So what's great about it is it's an app that runs locally, so you don't have to like log into a website just to like find sound effects, and you can like search for one. It sources multiple sound effects libraries, so you can sync a lot of free sound effects libraries. For example, Freesound. I know you've used freesound.org.
Yes, I have.
So Freesound is built in as an add-on. So when you're
Oh.
searching for Soundly Pro assets, it also searches for Freesound assets. So you have both of those in one place. You can sync other sound effects libraries as well. It comes when you pay for it, it comes with its own Pro library. That's pretty fully featured. It's got basically everything I need. Most of the sound effects I use come from the Soundly Pro library, but you're searching multiple sound effects databases at once. So if there's a sound that you're looking for, you're probably going to find it on Soundly versus going to a specific website and only searching their assets.
Interesting.
Not the best part. The best part is that you pull up the waveform. So you play back the clip, you find a clip you like, it pulls up the waveform. You can set in and out points, drag it and drop it directly into your editing software. This works with Final Cut, this works with Premiere, this works with DaVinci Resolve. You just drag and drop that
Wow.
selection into your timeline, boom, it's in your timeline.
That's pretty slick.
Saves you a lot of time. The alternative is to not only download clips individually and copy them into...
Which I've done.
Yeah, which is fine for like one-off things, but like if you have 15, 20 layers of sound design, it just takes you way too long. And this speeds up the process because it's not just like sourcing a lot of databases, but it's also automatically copying it to your project folder so that your media doesn't go offline. Because it's bad when you're dragging and dropping clips from your downloads folder and then you move your project folder and then it's like, where are those
Yeah.
assets?
I've
Like,
had that happen.
You don't have to worry about that.
All the red squares.
You also don't have to worry about that if you use Final Cut, just at all. But that's a selling point to Final Cut. But Soundly's great. I think it's like $20 a month, which is steep, but like I use it literally every day, so it's totally worth it for me. But that was something I resubscribed to for the Feature Film Project because I needed sound design.
All right. Well, is there anything else before we get to festival talk?
Final Cut Pro, $300, Soundly, $20 a month. A music licensing subscription. I use audio.
You can do what actually we've done for a lot of this film and make your own.
Yeah. So I use those for temp tracks, which is helpful. But
So you
yeah,
could've-
we swapped them with
We
better
swapped
tracks.
them. But like, if you do want to use it, there's an option.
Right.
If you perhaps don't have friends with a drum set that they can come set up back here. I really wish, Zach, you'd been there for that recording session.
I don't
'cause
know
it
why I
was
wasn't.
insane.
Something must have been happening.
I think you didn't want to go.
It was probably a combination of that and something else. I'd be surprised if I just didn't want to go.
Our first recording session was pretty rough, and I think after that you were like, just do whatever, Mateo. And then like we had
And then you did, and it worked.
we had such a good recording session that a couple of the people from it were like, hey, do you, like talking to each other like, hey, do you want to like take our instruments and go somewhere else and also jam? And I was like, well, that I know it's good whenever they're like so creatively stoked after the session that they want to do it more.
Right. And that's a good thing, like on projects too, like film projects and things, like when you rap and then everyone's still hanging out and wants to hang out. That's big.
And
really
they don't
big.
want to like kill each other. That's always nice. So festivals again. I think we'll probably spend north of $300 on festivals alone. because we like our product and we're putting it out, but you can find free festivals. You can find lots of stuff. There is also the issue where you have to kind of pick your battles with festivals.
Sure.
Because you can get into a mostly Western movie festival for some reason, as we have done, and it will probably be agonizing as you watch tons of Westerns win, and you're like, what's going on now? And then you're like, oh yeah, this is kind of a Western movie festival.
Yeah, maybe don't submit to that festival.
You did drive like 3 hours to get there.
We did, yeah.
I recall being in the car.
I don't know why this is so funny to me right now.
It's so funny. Well, it's because through the entire festival, I would lean over to Zack and go, I'm going to be honest, kitten, Daddy's about to kill himself right now. And you could not keep it together by like the third. And we just kept doing it all the way home. Their festivals are expensive. We've already had an entire episode on whether or not festivals are worth it.
Yeah.
Go ahead
in
and
short,
watch that.
yes and no and maybe yes.
It's kind of if you want them to be. And I think in this case we do want them to be.
Right.
It would be a very fun time to have a discussion where you're suddenly change your mind. But to my knowledge, we do want them to be. That said, some festivals can be, like $100 to enter. And often you have to weigh the cost of how good do I actually think my film is versus how badly do I actually want to get into a festival.
Mm-hmm.
And then how much money do I actually have? This year's very expensive for me. Last year was also expensive. There are free online film festivals.
Mm-hmm.
There are little local film festivals. You can sometimes like $5 entries, just enough so they don't have people.
We've done a few of those and they've been fun.
And they've been fun, and they're worth going to just to meet people who like movies.
Mm-hmm.
If you sit alone by yourself, you're probably going to have no more fun than if you were staying at home and just watching this on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But like you can have a good time at these film festivals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rehashing a point from, again, a previous episode.
That's okay. Yeah, I think as far as like the budget goes, we haven't spent that money yet and don't know exactly how much it'll be. We'll set like a spending limit.
Yeah, there's a spending limit where I'm like, Zach, I can only spend like $300 on this.
Right.
And I'm sure Zach will be like, all right, Mateo, I'm only spending $300 on this, and then therefore the budget becomes $600.
Mm-hmm. Which
hypothetical.
Would be great.
Yeah.
I think we should do it, but YouTube, guys,
YouTube.
YouTube's awesome.
The platform upon which we post this.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. You can get eyes on it. You can get, should the stars align, actually get a lot more eyes on it and a lot more important eyes on it than a film festival could ever give you.
Right. And this podcast is an interesting one because it's like we're not so much trying to be like advice for classical filmmakers that like shoot on Bolexes and upload. See, I'm getting ahead of myself.
There you go. You've given yourself away right there.
But they put their film onto a DVD and then they mail it into a festival that's like across the country or whatever. That is like the historical way of doing things, and that's what we've done and will continue to do. But also like this new wave of filmmaking is very much like it's almost a lifestyle. It's an art form like any other art form, and there's no gatekeeping. And I think YouTube is like the epitome of that as far as distribution of your film goes. It's just like throw it up there, make lots of films, post your micro shorts,
And I've gotten some great feedback on my micro shorts I'll just drop it into a Discord server and, full of people who don't know me from Adam. And I will get so much more feedback than I would at a film festival, because I can only shake so many hands at a film festival, but I can get a bunch of people just beaming like random comments at me like from all across the globe. And you can't get that all over the place.
Yeah. So we're kind of like, we're breaking down the budget just to like, for educational purposes. Like this is the things that we thought were worth spending money on. But the other side of the coin is like, but you don't have to.
Yeah, don't have to.
This is an example of that.
For example, all of Zach's gear, I would say stick with, look at Zach's Gear Corner. It's not that expensive. Stick with good sound, whatever you choose, because sound really trumps everything. And like you can throw like crazy filters over that sound so it sounds lo-fi and it's cool, but stick with good sound from the jump. You can always go back to good sound if lo-fi doesn't sound good. But if you start off lo-fi, there's nowhere to go. You can't go back. But outside of mics and, we had lighting equipment, again, like that gobo and this optical snoot, which, again, we could have really done, like, used a desk lamp for some of those shots if we'd been really broke. We weren't.
Yeah.
For everything that I spent, which was all practical, like, in shots, well, other than the final draft, but again, I didn't spend that. You can use Celtex for writing the script, and then you can go and spend $400 on everything that I bought. Again, don't buy the Mad Max prop. That's my own neurosis there.
Yeah.
You can put together a solid film edited on, DaVinci Resolve, which is a free program. And you can put out a feature film for basically no money.
Literally no money. So our film, like, we did spend money on things. It was a relatively small amount of money, but we could have done it for absolutely $0 because
we would have spent like $40 on waters.
Let me break it down for you, okay? Our exact film, okay? Just walking you through speed running the pre-pro, pro, post-pro process and all the things that we said we spent money on. I'm going to prove to you that we didn't have to spend money on any of those things. First of all, you have Final Draft. You don't need Final Draft. Use Google Docs. Use a pad of paper. You've got a pad of paper. You've got a pen. Use Celtex. Use Fade In. You can only write 10 pages in Fade In, but hey, just have 10, just to break up your feature film script.
That's not horrendous at all.
It's not, yeah.
Stay scrappy, my friends.
Anyways, do that for free. Production. Hey, you got sandwiches. You shop for groceries. You can make sandwiches for the crew.
I'm going to be honest, sandwiches still cost money.
Schedule your film in 4-hour increments between mealtimes and tell them to come with a full stomach. Free. Production. You don't need a camera. Get a cardboard box. Put a hole in it. You don't need a light. You got the sun.
Whatever props you have, right around those props, which is what we did.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Oh, the creature. We spent $80 on cloth. Just don't show the creature because that's probably going to be a better movie anyway.
Or use your bed sheets. Or go to a thrift store and get the bed sheets from a thrift store, and they cost like $3.
Exactly. And honestly, like, you already had the CRT, you already had most of the operator like equipment.
Yeah. Or
new
you're
people
again
that
like
had it.
half the costuming for basically all the costuming for our films. This was the most costume heavy film where I brought a bunch of like camo shirts and kind of uniform looking pants. Most of our films and most of this film even were, hey, wear this kind of stuff that you have at home, and you communicate that to your actors, and the actors who are used to working for free with indie directors are going to come in what they have. And if they don't have what you need, you'll, obviously have to like provide that. But for the most part, it's kind of whatever people have, and they'll volunteer stuff. And it's very collaborative, and it's great. And it's most of all inexpensive.
Make a mumblecore film. Just have people wearing normal clothes. Everyone has clothes.
Yeah, come in what you wore. Just
That's free.
Make sure to note down what they wore so that you don't have to Scorsese it with the general continuity.
Yeah, and the last thing I can think of is just, if you need sound effects, go to freesound.org.
Yeah.
Boom. There's your movie, guys.
Compose your own score.
Yeah.
And I mean, as even in our, obviously we've been talking about our own projects, but even in Powering Down, right? Compose your own score. It was fantastic. It was great. I loved it. It was minimal. It didn't have
exactly
to be super fancy.
It needed to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, that's perfect.
It wasn't like an orchestral piece that you downloaded from the internet that was just like way too much for what the film needed.
Exactly.
It was perfect. Yeah.
I really do think that you can do this. We could have done this movie for half. We could have done it for a quarter of the budget. Our budget primarily came from little splurges that we wanted to make it as good as we had it.
Yeah, for sure.
But the thing is that when you are at our level, and hopefully we're speaking to people at our level as we talk about film, when you're at our level, like, you don't have the investors, you don't have the producers, and if you do, let me know where you got yours because I want one. But you don't have the kind of people to ask for money that major Hollywood productions do, or even like major Hollywood indie productions.
Mm-hmm.
And why should that stop you from making a film?
Yeah. What's stopping you from making a film, guys? Whatever excuse you have, it's probably not a good one.
Time, effort, and money. But we've already taken money out of the equation, so now it's just time and effort, and that's kind of that goes for everything. So.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
this has been good. You know,
Yeah,
I hope you guys
really,
learned something from us breaking down our feature film project. You're going to hear us talk about it a lot more, so I hope you
Yeah.
don't get bored of it.
I'm really excited for you to see this movie. I say this every episode, and every week I mean it. So
And you're speaking for yourself, too. You're excited to see the movie.
yeah, I'm very excited to see the movie. Hopefully, I'll see it before you guys see it. Watch Zach just drop it on a random Tuesday afternoon. What has been your takeaway from this, other than what we literally just talked about for like 15 minutes?
My takeaway is start this podcast episode over, set it to 10x speed, and that's my takeaway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Trying to get those views up so that we can buy a studio.
My takeaway is doing a movie really is worth it. And like, again, I spent like $400, not including gear, because I didn't buy gear. Zach spent a little more than that, right? But again, we've already established that gear does not matter because you can do it on whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So like for like $500-ish, if you just don't have any gear at all, you just now have like the ability to just make a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And again, your mileage may vary. Maybe you live somewhere where water bottles are really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you live somewhere where it's much cheaper, and you're like, $400, that's insane. I'm making these on 12, and I'm like, well, good for you. I had to spend at least 40 on water. So, but wherever you are, whatever resources are at your disposal, you can make a movie, and you should be making a movie, and it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, that is my biggest takeaway from this, is looking at the money I spent versus the product it got me,
Mm-hmm.
and how happy I am with it.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I talked about this in last week's episode, but I made a bunch of like cinematic shot of the day videos. Literally did those in like a couple hours a piece, just using equipment that I had. And obviously I know that like not everyone has like invested
Yeah, I don't have a
in
GoPro.
equipment for like years and years, but like, you know, using like literally they're all shot on my iPhone with like a $100 tripod.
I saw you
like
using
100
like a little light with like a plastic bag over it for the one.
Yeah, the
where you're,
Walmart
like,
bag
filming
was
in
free.
a shower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can be scrappy and get some good results. So, you know, just be encouraged, make some movies, make them. It's fun.
Like a wise shoe brand once said, just do it.
Just going to let that sit for a moment.
All right. I've been Matteo Guthrie.
And I've been Zachary Koch.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. This has been Your Next Film. Go make a movie.